I would say that you have to wait on something, but because you're listening, you're not going to wait, at least not for very long. Next on Table Talk. So you didn't have to wait for us to come back. It's just that quick. We're already back. I'm here with Sarah and Nick.
Howdy.
Hey.
Hi.
And so we did have a little waiting today. We waited a little bit. We had on Nick to come meet us. Sarah and I were here early and on time, and Nick was not. But
I was doing my job. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what I want to talk about waiting a little bit. Well, maybe the whole time. Maybe the whole time we're going to talk about waiting.
Okay.
So my question, I'm just going to jump right into it. When you think back on your lives, recent, long ago, or whatever, what's been the longest period of time that you waited for anything, waited for whatever it is? What's been the longest period of time that you waited on something?
So when I was in high school, I've taken ballet my whole life, and my entire class of cohorts, people that were my age, all got their point shoes. You had to be a certain strength, a certain technique to get your point shoes. And they all kind of got it within 1 to 2 years of us being in that cohort. And I didn't, because she didn't think I was ready for that yet. She'd use the excuse, oh, you're too tall. Oh, you're whatever. And so it took me, I think, 2 more years past that point of waiting and working to be able to be approved for a point. And so I was like, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to get this goal that I want to get. But because I was persistent and I continued and I was loyal to that and I kept waiting, eventually I got my point shoes. And I got to practice that technique.
Which looks painful when I'm watching you guys. You do that. I'm sure there's some guys that do it, but I've only seen ladies around here that do that. That looks very painful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beauty is pain.
Yeah, because you're literally standing on your big toe.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
But even though you waited, there was stuff going on.
Yeah.
In your waiting period.
Absolutely.
So you just didn't wait, just sit around. I just need to get taller. I need to
Yeah.
That wasn't it.
You get bone lengthening surgery or something.
Yeah.
So you need to be shorter because that make it easier. But yeah.
Really? Was that the case? I had no idea.
Yeah, you're too tall.
Lindsay McKay, I know.
Yeah.
All her life, but she had foot issues. Type thing. I know she's had surgeries and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's common, right?
Yeah, I've broken
people that dance for a long time.
Yeah, it messes up your feet. Yeah, I've broken a few toes and kept going, but
yeah,
and kept going. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
casual.
Yeah,
and I can almost guarantee you, the guy sitting across the table from me has no idea about ballet.
I know that I'm never going to do it in my life. I don't know what else you're referring to, but that's all I need to know.
I would venture to say I'd be willing to wait until you learned. I would be really. I'm gonna wait till you learn so we can video that.
We're incorporated into VBS this year.
Yes.
Don't you speak that? Don't do that. Stop that. You're not going to be around to reap the consequences of that statement. No.
I'll be there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We make Mayor come back for video. Just see that.
Oh, that'd be. Would let the please.
So, Nick, any waiting, and that you think of in your life?
Yeah, so one of the bigger ones, if not scope of time, at least in importance, was junior year of college, realizing I wanted to marry Lauren, and just waiting for the time to be right to propose, but taking a season of waiting in preparation to prepare for that. So we both, summer of 2018, worked at WinShape camps, but separately. I was bounced around Texas. She was in the woods in Mount Berry, Georgia. And I took that 3 months as I am preparing and praying into Jesus is this, getting that final confirmation. Because we'd been together for, 3 years at that point, just in almost nonstop. So all right, we've taken that time apart. One, having to wait to see her again, but two, really growing strong in the conviction, this is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And then buying said ring with the money from WinShape, and then also having to wait to propose because we were trying to make it work to where her parents could be there to celebrate. So just having to wait a while to actually do the dang thing and
Yeah.
propose to her, right? And then, we got proposed, got engaged. October, or I think it was November of 2018. Well, then we're waiting till the end of the school year to actually get married. So yeah, it's a long season. And honestly, a pretty hard season, just between senior year, family dynamic problems on my end, just, it was a lot. That feels like one of the longest periods of time in my life is I know I want to marry her to actually being at the altar. That's a hefty time period in my head.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to bring you back recent past. When you came on board here as what we would say the interim youth director,
Yes.
right? This was whatever fall of that was, middle of the fall of that.
Fall of 21.
Fall of 21. You were in the midst of teaching at Providence. You're teaching Latin to 7th and 8th graders, I believe. So in that, what was that period like for you?
Because between?
Yeah, because did that feel like a waiting period, or you just going through, or you just doing life and just thinking about, okay, I got students, I got students at school, got students at church, and I'm just taking a week at a time. Yet that did it? I don't know, because I don't remember all of our conversations back then. Did it feel like you were waiting on getting to the student ministry role? Did that feel like a waiting period for you?
There was a point in time after Christmas when I could tell, okay, this is something that could work out long term, right? Because the pitch was not, you are our guy, we'll hire you at the end of the year. That conversation didn't come until March, I think.
Right, that's correct.
In terms of, so I didn't have any confirmation beyond like, oh, I'm going to serve. It did feel like a waiting period in the sense of like, I would have loved to have done that, right? If we're in like, October, November of 21, this is awesome. I love this. Would love to keep doing this. That awareness, like there's really not a healthy way for me to continue teaching full time, especially at Providence, not really using any tech. So having to grade 120 students work by hand constantly, and also giving youth ministry what it really needed, right? There was a point in time where I came to realize that like, okay, not only could this work, I really want to do, I would love to take that opportunity if they gave it. So there was that waiting in the, I know I want to do this. Are they going to want that too? But yeah, especially when you guys actually handed me that offer and job description and all that, it was a hard waiting period. Because like, one, Providence is a great school. I love their mission and what they do. They cannot hold on to Latin teachers for the life of them. I don't think they've had one serve longer than 2 years in the last decade. Just because it's a hard thing to source and sell. So there was a thing of like, okay, I know I'm doing this. I want to finish well. I'd much rather be doing this other job right now. So yeah, that was a hard waiting period, especially when it was locked in on the covenant side. Like, yes, this is what we're going to do moving forward. It was difficult.
The biggest weights that have been in my life is when you find out, in February or January, you're leaving.
Oh yeah, Tennessee.
Yeah. So I had those in, so January, February of 92, I knew I was leaving Kentucky and headed to Florida, and then 97, again, January, February, knew that I was going to be moving to Montgomery 4 months later or something like that. And so the issue that I ran across that I remember was simply not seeing that God was in the middle of waiting.
Yeah.
Because God wants me there. Right? I'm supposed to be in Florida.
Yeah.
In June, well, actually July of 92.
Right.
So that's really where God wants me, not here.
Yeah.
Right. I was looking forward, and the same thing when, in 97. God wants me in Montgomery type thing. That's where I'm going in mid-June of 97. And the hardest thing for me during those two periods was simply recognizing that within that waiting period, God was still doing something, and I wasn't aware of it.
Right.
And I wasn't even looking for it. I literally just spinning wheels, already thinking about, okay, what's gonna be my first sermon, about what, how's this gonna work out? Okay, are we taking everything? Are we leaving anything? Or, just a whole bunch of stuff just running through my mind there. And so I wanted just to spitball that a little bit, because sometimes we can misinterpret the wait, and that's the sort of where I want to go to get your thoughts on this, because how can we know whether it's a 2-week wait, 4-month wait, or a year wait, in your case, right?
Yeah.
How do we know if it's God ordained wait? How do we know if the delay is something that we've done? Are we doing something wrong? Is God just being silent? So just think about that a little bit. That's number 3 on our sheet, by the way. I never started number 1, apparently. So yeah. So.
So your question is, what if we are misinterpreting it, or how do we know if we?
Yeah, how do we know if we're responding correctly, or how do we know if we're not misinterpreting? Because there could be a case for, I'll go back to a couple of times that I was thinking about, and most likely leaving here. Did I misinterpret what God was doing? Because I ended up staying and not moving.
Yep.
But I had a period of a couple months where I was moving. I knew I was moving.
Yeah.
And then, nope, you're not moving. So did disobedience cause me to wait? Was it my disobedience that caused me to? Anyway, so just had those thoughts, because so many times we can think that we're in a waiting period, and we think that God's always in that. Or could it be that it's our own disobedience that's just causing God to delay in whatever that is, right? So we'll pick on Sarah. Let's just pick on Sarah.
Excellent.
Right.
All right.
So you have planned
Yes.
in your mind,
Yeah.
in your plans, and I keep reminding you, this is your plans, right, Sarah?
Yes.
Different plans. Your plan is to wait before going to grad school,
Yeah.
which is a seminary theological degree type.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
That's your plan.
Yeah.
Your plan is to wait.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you seeing God's hand in that?
Absolutely. So a little bit of a backstory. I actually did really want to go to seminary, straight out. And I said last week that the Lord wanted me to wait. And that took a lot of wrestling in myself to be like, okay, I won't go straight to seminary if that's not what you have planned for me. And He's made that clear through prayer and direction. And the doors have been open here at Auburn and all the things. And so I know He's definitely going to use this time for me to receive more young adult ministry training, because that is something that we see in the Methodist world and other worlds, that it's a area we need to grow in. It's an area we want to cultivate more. And so I see that hole, but I also see the opportunity for me to receive more training in that. And so I'm going to use this opportunity for a year to receive more training in that area, as well as this will be my first time stepping out into full-time ministry. I've been a student my entire life. I've been in high school. I've been in college. And so having that time of not fully diving into another year of 4 education, but getting my hands on like a full-time job, full-time internship in ministry is going to be really good within myself, as well as what I hope that the Lord will do through me in the kingdom. So there's definitely a lot to learn in this year. I'm not going to be sitting still. I'm also going to have to learn how to rest, but that's what you got to do in ministry.
Rest. You're 22 years old. You can rest when you're 50.
Right.
So
Wow.
you need to rest. Everybody I know your age doesn't need to rest. 2 or 3 hours nap, you're good.
Well,
You're good to go.
we drink too many energy drinks, but that's a whole nother topic. So
And that shall shorten your life.
yeah.
So Nick, thought about it a little more while me and Sarah were talking.
What happens if we misinterpret it?
Have you ever?
Yes.
Well, I'm gonna take you off your train of thought. All right. So you had all right. So you had a couple years ago. You were ordained deacon in the Global Methodist Church, right?
Yeah.
And you had an opportunity to quote unquote be appointed at our church, but chose not to pursue that at the moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So you waited. You literally waited for almost a full year for that.
Mhm.
Right. So what was going on in you during that time was that waiting? Was that waiting on something that you felt God was wanting to do? Was that something that you just wanted to do? Looking back on that, do you have any second thoughts about, I should have went ahead and got appointed and done the whole thing?
No, because a lot of that was based off of some info I didn't know in that sense, in terms of like what that would require. So the driving thing was that when that opportunity came up, it was not that long after Lauren's dad had passed. And just based on like taxes and, all that, income tax change, time to file differently, all that kind of stuff, just wasn't ready for that. Just wasn't ready to have to. And I know now this is not the case, but because all three of us, me and Bobby, have discovered there's some different ways you can work it. I thought it was going to wind up with like, I've got to take all of the taxes I owe, put it into my own account and file it all separately. Right. And just not wanting, frankly, just not being in a place to do that. I think that was one of those barriers though, that like, even if we had figured it out, I don't think the timing was right. It just because the appointment comes with a different level of conversation. It comes with different levels of like going through SPR. From the kind of conversations that were had in me becoming appointed, in hindsight, I just, even if those logistical barriers weren't present, I just don't think it was the time.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So during that time, because you made that decision, you thought about it a while before you made that decision to not to pursue that.
Uh-huh.
All right. So if you think back on that time frame and you fast forward, and so you're waiting until the point where, okay, yeah, Kyle, I think I want to be appointed now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what was going on during that time? You already made the decision. I'm not going to be appointed. I'm not going to fool with all the tax benefits and tax liabilities and all that stuff. But after that, because that was a practical decision. But you can put in God there or not, but that's really a practical decision.
In hindsight, I think Jesus was up to something in the logistical barriers. But to your point, or to your question, what was happening in that year?
Yeah, and that waiting between I made the decision not to then I make the decision. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let the denomination appoint me here.
Honestly, dude, just doing a different job, right? Because if we're talking timeline, this is 26. You just got appointed 3.5 months ago.
Yeah, literally January 1st this year.
Throughout the year of 2025, I was doing. Beginning of 25 is when I transitioned out of student ministry into mostly my current role. We called it assistant pastor at the time, but it's 90% the same, just in terms of real focus on men's ministry, being part of pastoral care, preaching team, yada, yada. Honestly, just getting acclimated and growing into those other responsibilities. And on the home front, me and Lauren figuring out, all right, well, what does it mean when we were full-time work partners, now we have different departments. What does it look like to healthfully support and ask for help and be married in that sense, but also champion each other in these other areas? It definitely felt like a year of growth and Jesus preparing me to take on what I didn't understand at the time was involved with being appointed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. There's one of those people talk about apologetics and the reasons that you should trust you, and that's all great stuff. For me, the greatest anchor for my faith is just the 10,000 times where in hindsight I can see Jesus just orchestrating stuff in the background, right? Where it's like, oh, that's not an accident. Like that is Jesus very actively at work. I could not have forced that or done that myself if I tried. If I had tried, it would have failed, right? In the sense of like, yeah, like that would have been a very different prospect to go down the appointment route. But Jesus just had me in this season of training and preparation and just getting acclimated to this new world of ministry in that sense, forming relationships, working with my team. So it felt very much like in that season of waiting, even though it didn't feel like quote unquote waiting, because I mean, truth be told, part of my misunderstanding, the appointment thing kind of felt like a clerical, like, oh, it's a piece of paper thing. I didn't really see the weight of it because this is not my context originally. Growing up in a Southern Baptist context and that being my ministry, where I was targeting for so long, that's just not how that works, right? But now I can see Jesus, the ways that he was growing and sharpening me to step into that more recognized, all right, you are appointed here by this outside authority to lead, to help administrate, to help do the work of the church. That's just different than being a program head. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a difference there for a reason. So I don't know. And maybe that's kind of my thing to bring to this conversation is it's possible to be in those seasons of waiting without being fully aware of it in that sense where it doesn't feel like it, or maybe you don't have a strong sense of what you're being prepared for.
Yeah.
I mean, Abraham, go. Where? I'll tell you when you get there.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
Kinda, right? I don't know. Like, it just seems like Jesus, at least in my story, is very has time and time again, I'll realize the ways that he's been going before and preparing me for something only way in hindsight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're not promised that we will get that hindsight on stuff, right? That's that stuff we get to celebrate in eternity is in all the little tricks and traps that Jesus was up to in the background that we never got to see.
Yeah. And I could make the case, if that I was waiting from 99 to 22
Mhm.
to be a senior pastor. I could make that case.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I was not thinking that. Right. It has to be 99 or 2006 or 2012 or really even 2021 that, Kyle, you're just in the waiting period of becoming senior pastor. And no, I would not have thought that. But always after the fact, I went, okay, we see it, just like you said, Nick. And so I think Sarah's going to be seen, a year from now or a year and a half from now, or whatever. Sarah's going to be a lot more clearer, right?
Yeah.
I would imagine.
I would hope and pray so. Yes.
Yes. So, but and I think the struggle when we said don't waste your waiting is maybe the way we just perceive it in the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe how we try to make sense of the waiting.
Right.
I don't know. I just because when I'm thinking now, what am I waiting on? What are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? Are we waiting on something right now? I'm trying to think. Am I waiting on anything? Well, yeah, I'm sort of waiting in my mind of setting a vision for the church and stuff. I'm in that process of waiting, but it's not like I'm gonna wait until June 28th and all of a sudden lightning strikes and I get something.
Right.
So there's a process of discussions that that I'll be having with some team members of our church, with Nick and Bobby, about direction of our church and stuff like that. So, because we don't want a waiting to turn into wandering, which is I just noticed that. So that if we can't see in our waiting that God is in that somehow, some way, at least a little bit, type thing, then I think we could wander off in areas. So the example that's mentioned there was Israel.
Right.
If I remember geographically, when they left Egypt, they were not that far from the promised land.
Oh, not at all.
No.
Weren't they literally right there, like within a few days or something like that? It wasn't
Weeks at most. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then 40 years when they were at the doorstep, literally, and God had them waiting.
Right. Reliance on God, for sure, for their provision in the desolate place.
Can't remember what went on during their waiting. Y'all remember the highlights of that story?
A lot of cred.
Crud.
A lot of bad.
A lot of death, right? Nobody that was 18 years old or older, something like that. No male.
Joshua and Caleb were the only ones of legal age who
survived,
walked into the promised land.
Right.
That were in Egypt, right? Males. I think it was just the males that died. Right.
Yeah.
So, but in their waiting, you remember an anomaly that is just sort of weird that happened?
The sun stopping in the sky for a while.
That was one of them.
Yeah.
That was one of them. You know something else? I'm still reading. I'm in Leviticus right now, so I'm gonna eventually get to it.
Wait, is it the quail?
No. Those are famous stories.
Okay.
Yeah, the quail, the quail, and the manna and stuff.
Yeah.
Their clothes never wore out.
Oh.
There's like one verse somewhere in the Exodus, Numbers, Deuteronomy type thing. Their clothes never wore out, or so reference back to that anyway. So there's one reference that says their clothes never wore out. Now we're going 4 years. I do have a shirt from college, so I do have that. So that goes back to 1983. I bought that shirt, so I still have a shirt. It still fits.
Wow.
So it's my fraternity shirt. Only one I ever bought. So, Nick, are you Googling that by any chance?
I am. Deuteronomy 29:5 and reference back in the book of Nehemiah 9:21.
Okay. So they wandered around, but that one thing, that I'll never forget that one thing when I read it. Wow. So, but what God was working in their waiting, He was bringing up new people,
Yeah.
in all that had to take place before they went into the promised land. So anyway, we're not going to make people wait on any more of our talking. But anything else that pops into your mind, anything else from our pre-reading or whatever that about waiting is I'm just going to stay on waiting. Anything else that pops up about waiting that insight on or questions about?
I mean, waiting is part of the fruit of the Holy Spirit. It's patience. And so, like, as you grow in your relationship with God, part of that is to learn to wait on His timing. And that He will teach you. And as well, that we might have different goals in what God has for us. He may have told us something, but our goal can't be senior pastor next week. It has to be, I'm going to be this position, or I'm going to be this part with God now, so that later this may come to fruition, but it may not even come to fruition the way that we saw. We just have to remember that our main identity is to be a follower of Christ and not the label or what our goals might be outside of that, because you never know what the Lord might do in His timing. So,
yeah, and what He could be up to that's not on your radar, right? I mean, that's a lot of the conversation we had. I think we talked about this last week, but to your point in your sermon in Acts, they're waiting on the Holy Spirit, that doesn't mean their job is to sit there twiddling their thumbs,
No.
right?
Yeah.
Just because the Holy Spirit says you're waiting in this one area topic does not mean that stagnation is what he's asking of you. Just because you're waiting, if you're a high schooler, on where you're going to go to college, that does not mean that your agenda is now cleared, go take a vacation, right? Jesus does not, I have never known Jesus to waste time. Now, rest is not the same thing as being idle. IDLE. Being restored, resting, Sabbath, those things are not wasted time. That is intentional effort to take a step back or be in solitude wherever you need. Jesus doesn't just waste time and say, just hang out for a while, right? I would even argue that in the wilderness, that's 40 years, not only of waiting on people to die, but of a generation being taught to live under the law. You know what I mean? Like making sacrifice, internalizing, oh, this is how the Sabbath works. Like there is always character formation and preparation happening. Literally always, right? Maybe it's patience. Maybe it's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We are being formed into the image of Jesus. And I'm going to swing for the fences. Jesus waiting is never deployed by Jesus without something in the process of trying to make you more like him. It's always a target, a tool he's using. Maybe it sucks. He's a redeemer. He takes things that are wrong and he brings good out of them.
All right. Well, thank y'all. So what I'm hearing is a little bit about the idea of what y'all were talking about. You're waiting with God.
Right.
You're in the process.
Yeah.
And so, and I differentiate between waiting with God and waiting on God.
Mm.
Waiting on God, sitting on your butt doing nothing and hoping something's going to happen, or waiting with God. And like the Israelites, I felt like some of them, I think, were waiting with God. They went along with the tabernacle worship and they were doing the things that he had challenged them to do. They were waiting with God. And so, I'm hoping that what most of us figure out, that this is a with God thing, and that we're not just, kicking back and going, show me, or whatever. So, well, thank y'all very much. And unfortunately, people will have to wait for the next episode.
Oh, man.
Which will be dropped on Monday, I think, for be a sermon, and then next Thursday or whatever. So not too long.
You're weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah, well, I know they're clamoring for one every day. Hey, they should drop one every day because we don't want to wait for the next one to wait 7 days or 3 days or whatever.
Yeah, behind the scenes situation.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to somebody that wants to do a podcast every day. Come on, we come in.
I just want you to know that down the path that you're charting out in the give a mouse a cookie logic eventually becomes a reality TV show, just so you know.
Yeah.
Constant cameras. This becomes The Office.
Yeah.
Not saying that's a bad or a good thing. I'm just putting it out there.
So we're dropping this a few days before our Fresh Real Free conference. Sunday morning, John and Jenny Baker will be sharing with us on the 18th and on the that night at 6 o'clock. And on the 19th at 6 o'clock, they will. We are not sure which one is speaking which yet. So John and Jenny Baker, wonderful people with wonderful stories and of their own personal stories that you'll not want to miss. Just for those of you who listen and may like this mode, the morning services will be live streamed and broadcast, but we encourage you to come in person on the night 18th at 6 o'clock and 19th at 20th. Please come in person.
Wait, that 19 and 20th?
I'm sorry, 18th and 19th? No, 19th and 20th.
19th and 20th.
What was I thinking about the 18th for? All right, so Sunday, just remember, Sunday the 19th, 6 p.m., and Monday the 20th, 6 p.m. Come in person for those. Catch our regular Sunday mornings live stream wherever you're at. Thanks. Have a good week.